Hi, Lori.
Leadership, CEOs, CFOs, CIOs, all of that. And where are the PTs? And since I've gone through this odyssey, I have met other people who are moving into that space, which is wonderful. So why should PTs be in non-clinical roles? Well, as you all know, healthcare the model is changing. I say not soon enough. I wish it was going faster, but it's not. We're moving into value-based care, if you're aware of what value-based care is, where it's really outcome-based. Every year I go to meetings where they tell me for sure this year it's going to be value-based care. And I just heard it again. It's a statewide, it's called the Hertel Report, and it's for statewide insurers and hospitals and all that. And the woman from New York insisted we are going to value-based care this year. I don't know, I've heard that many years, but eventually we will move that direction. And in value-based care, what's important is outcomes. You know, we're so focused, we've been so focused on just doing things to patients, and we do all kinds of things to them. And we say, oh, we did a great job. We did this intervention and that intervention. The patient died, but we did all these great interventions. The goal is really to get people into value-based care where the outcome is what matters. And when you think of what do PTs do? From the time we start as newbie student PTs in our first internships, we do goal setting. We're very aware of the outcomes that the person wants. We bring in the patients, the families, the community. We're capacity building. You know, we're trying to get people to be able to live their life to the fullest. We're not talking about fixing things all the time. Someone has a stroke, it's about getting to where they can live with their family and their house and all that. It's not about doing something to fix the disease or the disability or whatever. And I always like to give this story of, you know, if you don't know what SDOH or social determinants of health, they're the 80% of things that affect our health that has nothing to do with our medical care. And my first job, my first internship, I was in Tucson, and I remember sitting down one of my first days, and right away they were asking me, the student, where's this patient going? What are they going to need for DME? You know, do they have any family? Do they have stairs? Do they have all these kinds of things? And I was able to talk to that more than anybody else in the room. And I was just a student, because that's what PTs do. And so it's bothered me that we understand this, but we don't realize how well we understand these things. So just as I'm talking, reflect on your own experiences of the above and where you added value. So what is your personal journey? Do you want to make a change? And some of you said you're looking to change. Some of you want to stay where you are or get a little bit more to do at the job you're at. Why do you want to make that change? I think when I got laid off, I was really anxious and panic stricken. And I don't think I really took the time to say, what is it that I like to do? But I do know, as soon as I was on my way home with all my stuff from my office, I remember thinking, what I was doing is exactly what I wanted to be doing. And so I started looking for, I didn't know that before I got laid off. I just sort of ended up in places. And so I decided I just really wanted to go back into some sort of leadership. So do you want to undertake additional responsibilities within your job? What do you enjoy about your job? Sometimes we get all hung up on the things that bother us. We don't realize that we really like about 75 to 80% of our job. Which parts don't you enjoy? What's the benefit loss ratio? What would it take for you to change or for you to leave or for you to add on some new things? And that's really important to go through, to make lists. And it's important to go through it while you're working. It's not good to do it when you're in a panic state after a layoff. And is there something I can change to do more of the parts I like? If any of you have read Wild, which I did not read, by Cheryl Strayed, but there was a movie with Reese Witherspoon. I heard her speak. She said, there's that moment when you have to ask yourself not who you aspire to be, but have to reckon with who you actually are. And I think that's important whenever we're making changes. And whatever you decide, it's impertinent, it's impermanent. It's not, it's like raising kids. It's always going to change. And then my neighbor, when I was going through this myself and looking for work, and people kept saying, well, why don't you go work in a clinic? Why don't you go work in a SNF? Why don't you do this? And I said, I really want to go into leadership. I like that. And I remember justifying it, to qualifying it to a neighbor of mine. And she stopped me and said, Lori, that's why there's menus in restaurants. And so I'm saying that because there was a time, I think it's getting better, where sometimes there was shaming when we weren't following the path that everybody else was following and seeing patients every day. It's okay to go after what you want and where you think you're going to be most useful and helpful. Be okay with your choices. And then be okay with not just failure, but mediocrity. That's always been a hard one for me, because sometimes you may take on something because you're not sure you like it and find out you're really not that good at it. And that's okay. That's okay. There's nothing wrong. It's like, I went back to treat outpatient orthopedics and sports medicine, and I wasn't horrible. I think I helped people, but I would not be the person I would send some elite athlete to. So I have some things I want to share. And again, just think to yourself what kinds of things you might be able to add to your job. I started with hospitals. There's a way to add value into your present position. It looked like about half the people were looking at how they could do more. Within the job they have, they don't want to really leave their job, but they want to do more. And I will tell you, as the director of a hospital, I loved when people came to me with ideas, because sometimes it was at a meeting, well, Lori, what's this about? And what do we have to do with this? And what do we have to do with this? And I would think, why do I have to look up everything? People, I need your help here. So one of the things that we got involved in, and I see in hospitals, it's up and down. Oh, we don't have time. It's wrecks our productivity to get involved with discharge planning, but it's so important. And it's important to speak to leadership pain points. And I can't emphasize that enough. You don't go to people. I mean, I don't mean to lecture you like you don't know this, but what I learned is we don't go to people and say, well, we need more staff, or we need to be at discharge planning, or we need to be here. Talk to somebody else's pain points. If the hospital has a problem with readmissions, we know that PTs involved in discharge planning early on makes a big difference. Get the research together, pull it together, write up a pro forma or whatever, hand it to your boss, and I will tell you, your boss will be so happy to have that kind of help. So think about, yes, it may affect productivity, but it will reduce readmission rates. It will reduce undesired outcomes. It engages the rest of the team. I remember when I got much more involved in this type of thing and did presentations, the nurses and the social workers were just so eager to have us involved, and they felt like the pushback was coming more from the rehab professionals rather than from them. And so I just started getting them as advocates. So if I wanted to go to a VP, I would bring a nurse or a social worker with me to talk about how helpful we could be. Quality is another area. What quality metrics are really important and pertinent and things that PTs can be involved in? What about things like falls? That's a huge thing in hospitals. A culture of mobility. What is your hospital doing? And can you sit on any committees? Can you add anything? Can you spend a little time doing research to help out? Volunteer to report on safety and quality at the quality meetings. Again, your director and your manager are so happy to have the help. They should be, because they don't want to do it all. The other thing is, someone had mentioned he was interested of someone I knew a long time ago, utilization review, and he said he just threw that out there. But I got involved in utilization review very early on, when we were highly capitated when I first moved to Tucson. And they just really wanted my help to determine if people needed to come for PT, if they needed more visits, less visits, whatever. And when just my limited experience, I was able to give them a lot of information that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And sometimes I told them people needed less visits than they thought. So I wasn't always just pushing for more PT visits. Process improvement, if any of you, and I don't know, there's too many to raise your hands, if any of you work where you have regular process improvement, you have a Lean Six Sigma program. If any of you are familiar with Kaizens, it means good change. And you can put your change desire on a small piece of paper with what your present state is and what your future state should be. And you can find little tiny things to work on. One of the things we worked on was making sure rooms were cleaned in the outpatient area. It sounds like nothing, but it's something that you can get your feet wet with process improvement and learn how these work. And sometimes we worked on another one with discharge, getting earlier discharges, and we found out that people were hung up with getting their DME really late. And so we really helped with that, and that ended up helping the entire organization for getting, discharges, people out on time and throughput and all of that. And then, like I said, culture of mobility and falls. What can you be involved in? And do it with interdisciplinary teams. There are so many, or interprofessional teams. Most large organizations have clinically integrated networks and ACOs. Don't ask me to explain the difference in those two, but they're basically collaborations of, physicians, other kinds of healthcare providers. Like in our ACO, we do have some PT practices, dentists and eye doctors and all that, whoever wants to be in an ACO, and hospitals, and they work together to try to collaborate. Find out if there is one, and what are they working on? Is SNF and rehab usage, do they think it's a problem? Because we have a voice in telling them how it's really reducing costs and things like that. Do they have problems with discharge delays, readmissions, continuum of care for people who have diabetes, or people who fall or have brain injuries or whatever? Find out what people are having problems with, and they'll be very happy to have your input if you have some solutions. Patient and employee engagement is a real issue. It confounds all departments in a hospital. And you could just sit and learn some things and maybe offer a little bit in that direction. I use the example of finding walkers because that was a huge employee dissatisfier, not just in our department, but never being able to find walkers. And when we came up with a solution, it made everybody happy. And when you do that, when you answer other people's problems, you get you get these partners that will work with you on things that you want to work on. And I just said, just say yes, because that's where I've been successful. And just, sure, I think that's related to what I do. Private practice, I'm sorry, I haven't worked in private practice as much. I've had some outpatient programs, but they've always been affiliated with hospitals. So I just threw some things, wellness programs, wellness coaching, motivational interviewing, going for a little bit of extra training for these types of things, and community outreach. Who are the other partners in the community working on social determinants of health that you can offer support to? Homeless shelters, food centers, FQHCs are federally qualified health centers. I did work at one. I think that's a real prime environment for us to go into, and I don't think we're visible enough in those. Identify where revenue streams may be coming, and there may not be, but there's a lot of community organizations that need information from PTs. I sat on a lot of boards, homeless shelter and the YMCA and others, and having a PT voice was really helpful. There might be other kinds of things that you can do. Actually, I have another slide after that that's a little bit bigger, but basically, there's so many things where we can walk in and we can have a voice, and people are really happy to have the volunteers and to have people with expertise. I'm going to do a real big push for APTA membership if you're not an APTA member. Sometimes people wonder what the value is. And for me, the value has been connecting with all these different people. I mean, I know so many of you on here because of the APTA, and finding out what other people are doing. And there are so many different groups. There's academies and sections, there's councils, there's APTA Engage, which is phenomenal. If you haven't been on it, go on it, because it gives you all the national chapter and section and academy opportunities. It gives you a chance to be nominated for particular technical panels and things like that. There's a nomination right now for CMS quality measure technical expert panels, but I've seen other ones where national, Medicare and other national offices and organizations are looking for specialists in quality or care management or something like that. And the APTA wants to send somebody from our organization. And so there's all kinds of opportunities to look on there and see if there's something that you'd like to do or get started with. The other thing is, what I found is, they were looking for those three things: coding and billing, research, and quality measure technical experts. But I've seen other things listed. It changes all the time. One of the things I noticed when I was looking at chapters, what chapters were asking for, and I thought, well, it's not my chapter, but my chapter could have something like that. And so you could use that as a way to think of things that might interest you, that you might want to start a special interest group or something like that. And so this could give you those opportunities. And then I want to put a shout out, if Meredith's here, to the non-clinical PT. Meredith Kasten is a friend of mine, and we met because we were working in the Academy of Leadership and Innovation together that used to be HPA, and she started the Beyond Clinical Catalyst group, and now she is this huge, the non-clinical PT company, and she offers webinars and courses and a way to connect with people that are interested. And she even had an article about me, and because of it, a lot of people started calling me about my certifications and my MPH. So it's great to have that network of people. And that's exactly the way Meredith looks, by the way. So here's adding value still at the national and state initiatives. I started thinking about this, surveyors for accreditation, CARF, JCO, DNV, NCQA that does all the HEDIS measures, and they also have patient-centered medical home recognition, CMS. And I would say, if you've ever been involved in a survey or you have people coming to your department say, how did you start doing this? How did you get this job? This is something I'd be interested in. It's always worth a try. There's a lot of task forces. There are so many CMS things that come over my emails that are asking for my input, and you can go online and you can write things. And I'm sure some of you have already done a lot of this, but I think it's a way to find out what's going on. And then there's state, counties, city councils, boards and commissions. And I think this is a place where we have to be visible. I actually, because of Dr. Gall, who I told you about, the rheumatologist, he got me to be on the Governor's Council of Arthritis and Musculoskeletal Diseases. And then I became the chair, and I'm going to tell you, I had no idea what was going on, but I learned quickly, and that was a lot of fun. And I got to interact with people from all over the state who had this interest in arthritis and musculoskeletal issues. And I think it was important that a PT sit on that Governor's Council. But when you look through, say, boards and commissions in the city and the county, you know, it may sound crazy, but they have, say, a transportation board. Wouldn't it be good to have a PT talking about accessible transportation and places where people can walk, or, you know, if they can't walk, places for wheelchairs and things like that? Our voice is really important and needs to be heard. And so if you're interested in any of things like this, think of the ways that you as a PT can offer another voice to the conversation. And what do they say if you're not, what's that? Maybe someone will remember. If you're not sitting at the table, you'll be on the table, or something like that. You know, like you need to be at the table to have your voice heard. How to choose. What interests you? Do something that interests you. It's like I always used to tell people when they ask what the best exercise was, and I did a bariatric program, I did the exercise training, and they say, what exercise is the best exercise? And I said, it's the one that you're going to do. Because you can think about exercise a lot. And it's the same with this. Don't pick something because, oh, you know, I should do this, or they need somebody to do this. If you're not interested, you're probably not going to put much effort to it, and you're not going to be that excited about it, and probably won't be that successful. So if something really interests you, I sit on a board and I'm a treasurer. I totally nerd out on Excel spreadsheets and money and all of that. I love that stuff. Finally, after all these years of life, I'm not making excuses or apologies for it. I'm a nerd and I like that. And I think that's what you have to do. What do I really enjoy doing, and what would I want to speak to? It doesn't matter if it's something that interests anybody else. Really, really take a good look at yourself and what you enjoy doing. Because if you're going to do this extra in your job where you're already busy and just trying to get through the day, don't pick something you're not going to like. Who do you know who can help you further your plan? And the biggest thing I learned after I got laid off, they gave us professional counseling, whatever. And it was really helpful. One of the things that helped me in that is they talked to us about, a lot of times people just will put something on LinkedIn or whatever. I'm looking for a job in this. Somebody help me. People love to help other people, but they like to do it when they can do something useful and specific for you. So when I lost my job, I started asking people for some very specific help. I remember, because I'd done a lot of FCEs, I talked to Margot at Eisenhagen, and I had something laid out. This is what I'm thinking about doing. Do you have a resource, someone I can talk to about this thing? And she talked to me for an hour about it. And, you know, I had someone just recently ask me for help with his resume. He's a CFO who's never done any healthcare. So my husband actually said, have Lori look at your resume, because I have a healthcare background. So I could give him that specific help. Contact, you know, is there someone, this present job, I asked everybody I knew who I thought might know people on the hiring team to contact those people for me. And it was, they each had one contact and it worked. when I got the job at Steward, my brother-in-law was actually a senior vice president of Steward. And I applied and applied for like 7 jobs. They were all similar jobs and nobody got back to me. And I finally called him, not to say get me a job, but I said, do you know anybody in HR? Because I have a funny feeling nobody's seeing my resume because I think I'm qualified for these jobs. And he said, well, who are you talking to? Well, if you've ever applied for a job, you know nobody in HR gets back to you or even may even see your paperwork. And so he said, oh, okay, I'll call. And I got a call the next day from somebody. He didn't get me the job. He just got somebody to look at the resume. Some people people have contacted me to ask me about CPHQs and MPHs and what the benefit is and disadvantages are and all of that. And I'm perfectly happy to talk to them because that's a specific thing and that's where I can really help. And I hope that makes sense. It's just, really think about your connections and what they're good at and how they might be able to offer you some help in a very specific area. Because people do like helping each other. They do. Resume, always be updating. This is how I felt. I already uploaded my resume. I had job applications where they seriously asked me for the day I started first grade and the day, not the year or the month, the day I was done with 6th grade. And I thought, well, what are they going to do? Discover that I'm lying? I can't remember any of that. And I think it was a way to tell my age, and there was no way to get out of filling it out. But sometimes I just sent you a resume. Why do you need all this extra information? But sometimes that's what they need. So always be updating. And then I'm real big on saying specific things that people said about me when I put the letter together or I put the resume together. Specific additional jobs I took on. Then avoid the job description. And this comes from me reading and interviewing a lot of people over the years, not just for work, but for volunteer board positions and all of that. And what a lot of people do is they write a job description in their resume. And I always say, and this is what I said on the non-clinical PT, we know the guy who makes the donuts gets in there in the morning to make the donuts. We know as a PT, you treated patients and provided excellent care. But what accomplishments do you have? Did the guy with the, a tutor, like they say, a tutor is someone who, as a tutor, I helped people with their math after school. Well, of course, that's the definition of a tutor. But say that of the 10 kids I tutored, 8 of them got these grades on their SATs. So you always want to say what it is that you did that was an accomplishment. And I think a lot of times people are not good at bragging on themselves, but I used to tell my staff all the time, come to me with all the things you did this year, and then you'll get the good raise. But I can't keep track of all that. You just keep track of it, and you can keep track of it in your job, and it could be what you consider very small, but it's not necessarily small. Also, don't worry about the length, because a lot of people get all hung up on how long something is. I never cared. I wanted to know what this person did. I mean, if I'm reading resumes, I don't care if they're 2 pages or 3 pages. It's not a big deal to me. Brag, but don't lie. Be ready to answer any questions specifically with an example. And this is really important because a lot of people fluff up their resumes. But then in an interview, I actually was asked in the interview for this job on something I wrote. The revenue cycle guy director, who I think is brilliant, he said, so here you said this, give me an example. And I was able, because that's what I did. I was always, as I was writing it, thinking of what example I had. So read their job description very carefully and look between the lines. And this just happened when I was working with my friend who's the CFO. I said, it's very funny. They keep talking about team building and a team player and collaborating and all of that kind of stuff. And it's interesting because that's not typically what I think a CFO should do. And I said, what I was seeing between the lines is they had some CFOs who didn't get along with people. So you need to really talk about how well you work with teams. And sometimes you can get that from how they choose to write a job description. Then in the cover letter, write about the company and the organization, not just how great you are, but say, I really want to work for you because, read their mission and vision and all that. Spend some time getting ready and figuring out why you do want to work for them and how you think you'd be an asset. Be aware of their accomplishments that they're particularly proud of. Use their words. People like to hear their own words repeated to them. I can't say that enough. When I sent in patient-centered medical home for the recognition, I would actually write exactly the way they said it and it would pass. If I left out one of their words, it was like they didn't understand that what I was doing because it wasn't one of their words. People like their words. And so what I often would do is I'd have a double screen and I'd have their job description and then my resume, and I'd just be cutting and pasting using, it was about me, but I was using the words that they like to use. Because I will tell you, a lot of times a person never sees the resume at all. They're oftentimes, they get kicked out if they don't have the right words. And by the way, I know this seems to be about getting another job, but it also can be about sitting on a board. It can also be about, if you're interested in being on a committee, you can write a bio to the committee so they know why they should pick you. I've been asking for board positions of the ACO. I've been asking people to send me a resume or like a quick bio about themselves. And it's very nice when they tell me why they want to be on the ACO, and then I can go to the board with that. So you can use this information even if you're not planning on leaving your job. And so these are the words. I tried to do I don't know how to do what are they, a word cloud? But these are kind of the words all the time. And I would just take them and I would put them in to the right place in the resume or the cover letter. And this is, and I was thinking, I did, seriously, I still have like 100 resumes and applications and things like that I don't want to keep, but I think in this case, maybe I'll keep them to help other people. But this was for a job I didn't get. And quite frankly, they didn't even respond to my email, even though twice I said, can you just tell me if you got this job, if you got my email? And that's the other thing I want to say, do not get discouraged and do not take it personally. It has nothing to do with you. You might have to apply for 45 jobs to get one, but you only need one. That's what someone said to me. You only need one. So this is something that someone showed me how to do, and I used it for several different jobs. I don't know if it actually got me any jobs because I was trying to go back and look at the jobs I got. And I actually got like 8 different jobs in about 3.5 years. And most of them were in leadership. I didn't take them all. So this, on the left-hand side, it's their words. Oops, here we go. Creative visionary with a regional strategic perspective. So what I did is I made like a table and put all the things I did. And this was in the cover letter. Mentorship of leaders and high-level professionals. And I did use their words. And just so you know, this budget analysis, resource management, lean knowledge, change management, when I applied for this job, I didn't have a lean certification, a Sigma, a belt of any color. I didn't even have a white belt, but I had done some lean training. So I did not lie. I said changes were directed through lean techniques with involvements of all stakeholders. And I think it's important to not say, well, I don't have this, but rather, how does it align with what you do have, if that makes sense? But I made a table and got rid of the lines. And this was one of the tricks they taught us in that training that I got after I was laid off is, I would do a quick paragraph and then an ending paragraph. And in the middle, I had this table so they could easily see how I matched. But I also talked about them. Excellent reputation for patient satisfaction, high quality, the mission that they have, because they want to know why you want to work there. On your interview techniques, make it behavioral, even if they don't. If you're aware of behavioral interviewing, it's not just how do you think people should communicate, but tell me about a time that you dealt with a very difficult conflict in the workplace. Some people don't interview that way, so make it that way yourself. So if they ask you, how do you think people should, do this particular thing? Say, this is what I think, and let me tell you about a time I did it. Interview them. Do you want to work there? A lot of times I've been in interviews where at the end of the interview, I thought there's no way I'd ever want to work for this person or this organization. Listen between the lines, just like reading the lines. What is their problem areas? Be yourself, cheesy and true. This is particularly for women. My husband told me this. Women tend to say we more and men tend to say I more. And believe it or not, a little bit of narcissism is more likely to get you hired. There's a whole book about that called Leadership BS. And women tend to qualify things a lot and say, we did this and I work with this great team, and that's wonderful when you're working, but in an interview, you have to be a little more assertive than that. Exude confidence, don't qualify what you say. Don't say that, well, I don't know if I really know about this, but don't give them anything. One person said to me, who was doing some training on interviewing, she said, don't make them question anything. So you don't have to tell it. You can hold your cards close to your vest. You don't want to lie. You don't have to share everything. I had a person, we asked her, what are the type of people that you have trouble working with in the workplace? And her answer was angry men, and that's why I'm getting a divorce, or that's why I got a divorce. And I thought, okay, that's a little too much information in an interview. An interview is just a time to kind of see red flags. That's how I see it. So when you have time at the end, think of some questions. And these are not the questions you should ask. You should ask these things after the offer, not during the interview. After the offer, you're going to ask for anything additional, like, can I work remotely? Or how much does this pay? Or will you do certifications and training? And all of those things are not the questions you ask. You ask things that are specific to the type of job. How will you know if I've reached the goals? Have you set some goals for the first year, and what are they? Those kinds of things. But you can definitely ask for money, more money, once you get the job offer. And I actually always recommend it to people. I just say, unless you think they're giving you an outrageous amount of money. But I always say you can ask for more. I asked for more vacation time this time. It doesn't mean I'm going to get it, but I think it's always good to ask, because it sets you up as the kind of person that you're going to be an ambitious person, and hopefully that's what they want. These are resources for certifications: CPHQ, Certified Professional in Healthcare Quality. That's at NAHQ.com. NCQA, that's the Patient-Centered Medical Home Certified Content Expert. It might be nice to go on and see what that is. It's integrated care teams. It's a recognition for being an integrated care organization. There's all kinds of healthcare compliance through the Healthcare Compliance Association, and there's different kinds of certifications. And I'll bet you if you went and took a practice test, you'd find out you can do really well on it. And Louis Armstrong said, it's a wonderful world. So that's what we have to think about. And these are my questions. And I wanted to leave a little bit of time for questions. So it looks like there's some in the chat. If you can answer these questions, then you win the award. I don't know what it is though. So
Lori, I just thank you so much for lecturing. It was wonderful tonight. I had just popped into the chat box and said if anybody has any additional questions, you can easily unmute since we're wrapping up, or go ahead and type them. But I'm happy to say them out loud so everybody can hear them. Let's see. Christine asked, could you please go back to AHQ slide?
Okay, is that AHQ. I don't know which one that was, Christina. I'm sorry. I don't, do you know what it stood for?
Second one from the last.
Oh, it was the second one from the last. Let me look through this here. Okay, I'll end it. Woo. So resources. Oh, these. Okay. That's right. I didn't have the AHQR or whatever, but yeah. So you were looking at this. I'm going to be sending the slides, so you'll be able to see this. These were just some ideas. And just so you know, I thought I put it on one of my slides, but there's actually ASU, for those of you who are in Arizona. ASU has a year-long health law program. You can get a certification in health law. I've thought about that over the years. I mean, it just seems like another interesting thing that you can add additional to compliance. So is that good? Is that the one?
Yep, and I'll email everybody your PowerPoint presentation at the end here. And then Nam had asked, can you speak a little bit more about NAHQ certification?
So yeah, CPHQ, Certified Professional in Healthcare Quality, and that is I really liked getting that because I was the quality manager at the community health center. And it's NAHQ, National Association for Healthcare Quality. They're situated in Chicago, and they have a lot. Like you can get the certifications, but you can also join them, and they have a lot of publications and also trainings, very inexpensive or for free. And they do have a training if you're interested in getting the certification, where you can go to a 2 or 3 day course. I don't know, they probably have some virtual possibilities. They'll also give you ideas of where to go, just study on your own. I ended up just studying on my own. I don't think you're required to have worked in quality for any length of time. I think they want you to have done a little bit of that. But you'd have to go ask them. I found them to be very helpful. You know, they're there, they answer questions. So if you have an interest in it, I think when I just recently went online, for people that are just interested in potentially getting a CPHQ, they do a free in-service on what that would entail and why you might want to get it and how helpful it is. And it goes across the gambit. So it's not just, well, you do this one very small part of quality. I mean, if you've worked in population health, if you've worked in IT, if you've worked in other areas of healthcare, they can be linked to quality. It can be very helpful. The test isn't real easy, but it's doable. And then NCQA, National Committee on Quality Assurance, they're the ones who create all the HEDIS measures that we love so much, that we use for our quality metrics. I'm not a content expert anymore because they make you take their classes and they charge a lot for them. To be a CPHQ, I actually have used CSM courses I've gone on and sent it into them, and they've approved those if they're related in some way to quality. And so I was able to get my my second, it goes for 2 or 3 years, and I was able to get my second certification without going for any additional training. And there's also a statewide, I know there's an Arizona group and they're pretty active too. Hope that helps. Compliance. And I didn't also put on here, if you're interested in, I think I might have said HIMSS, which is the Health Information Management System Society. That's a great resource if you're interested at all in anything IT. And they do have some certifications as well, tech certifications in healthcare, which is really good. And all of those things, I would say, people have said, how do I find out more about this? I just tell them, you can sign on to the American Hospital Association and the HIMSS and, get involved with the NAHQ and that, and you'll get more emails than you ever want to get, but it keeps you updated. IHI is another one, the Institute for Healthcare Improvement. They have a lot of courses going on. And they're, that's Don Berwick's group out of Boston, but they have a lot of courses and some of them are very inexpensive or free. Some of them are like, $30,000 for a year-long, healthcare executive, but there's some that are really inexpensive and they're always sending updates and, what's going on in the world of healthcare and all that. And so it's very helpful to find out what everybody's doing. Any other questions? I can't.
Thanks, Lori. Let's see. Everybody just says thank you very much for all the different information. I just wanted to take a minute. Roger, our new APTA president, Roger Hurd, do you mind just popping on and saying hello to everybody since you're on the call?
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. Lori and I have been following each other's careers, but never have been in the same room at the same time. So I saw her, been admiring her career and all the opportunities she identified. I totally agree. You learn from failure, but being all the different roles, like a surveyor, being asked to do chart reviews to help the quality committee, or having opinions on wound care and falls to help the quality of an organization. Those are all ways you can get involved with your expertise, but help that interprofessional role that we all do. And it leads to, the different careers we've each had. I greatly admire all my peers at work that are in day-to-day practice, but they also like what I do in the organization to help make sure we're doing good decisions and making good systems so that people can practice well, get paid well, et cetera. So there's many ways you can serve this profession and the larger society that we all serve.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And I'm just going to say one thing, and thank you, Roger, because Roger has done very non-traditional roles and now he's our president. One of the things that I said earlier, and I didn't really say it on this talk, but I've said it a lot, is some of the biggest resistance I've gotten, not as much anymore, but in the past, is from other PTs. Like I said, I did not get the resistance from the care managers. They were dying to have us be a part of discharge planning. And then we had an interprofessional wound care team that worked really well. In fact, they asked one of our PTs who had some certification, can she come work in the WOCN office 2 days a week and we'll pay her? I mean, they just really wanted our input. And that's also how you get partners when you need something. You're going to bring other people in the organization, not just try to do it all on your own. So thank you. Thanks, Roger, for coming. I know it's late where you are. It's very late.
It's okay. But I think both you and I kept PTs behind our name. And I think many other people dropped it when they went into the quality world or other areas. And I was never afraid to say that. But I also see leadership and organizations are changing. The last couple of CEOs that I was hired by actually sought out other people besides nurses and physicians in those roles. So the world is changing.
It is. And they need us. There's such a shortage. And just so you know, I can be rather irritating when I get something from a recruiter and they say, oh, this is a great job for you. And then I see it's for a nurse only. I say, wait a second, why is it a nurse only? And then I get in a conversation and the recruiting, I didn't include this either. There was a lot because this is a big topic. recruiting, like healthcare executive recruiting firms, they're good friends to make. That's actually how I got this job, but they're also good friends to make because they'll send something out and they're limited by the person looking for the position. And this one woman said to me, Lori, I asked them, they insist it has to be a nurse. And after we don't get people, I say, are you sure? Will you consider anybody else? And I just saw the Arizona Hospital Association had some sort of care manager, supervisor, and it said all this stuff that I've done. And then it said, hey, you have to have an RN. And I said, why? And the woman said, she's going to talk to me. And she said, well, when we didn't say RN, we got all kinds of people, that had nothing to do with healthcare. And I thought, well, just say it, that you want someone with a healthcare clinical background, with a degree in a clinical field. That's all you have to say. You don't have to say it's an RN. It could be any clinical field. And I just wrote a job description that the care managers in the ACO can be anybody with some type of clinical quality background. In fact, I included pharmacists because I've worked with them as members of the team. So sometimes I think we have to be a little pushy, a little irritating. So.
Well, I just want to wrap everything up since I want to be cognizant of everybody's time. It's a little after 8. So I just want to, again, express my appreciation to Lori for taking all of her expertise over the years and sharing it with us and putting it together in a great presentation. You will get her PowerPoint slides again following the meeting tonight, and then keep an eye out for your CE certificate. And if you have any additional questions, again, Lori's graciously given her email contact. So if you want to follow up.
Did you put that in there?
I did, but I'm also going to put it in the follow-up email to everybody tonight.
Good.
So yeah, so you'll have that contact so we could reach out if any additional information is needed. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight. And I hope you have a great evening, and we'll let everybody sign off.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
This was fun. Nice seeing all my friends.
Yeah, thank you, Lori, for all of your time and your information and great slides. I'm going to have you and I stay on for just a minute,
Okay.
Lori, if that's okay, when everybody logs off. Thanks, David. Thanks, John, for coming by.
Thank you so much for this. It was incredible.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad, David. You're doing a million things. You don't need any more stuff to do.
Yeah, maybe the next slide is how to say no.
But we're gonna do even more together.
Yes,
That's right,
we
that's
will.
right.
Even though he's way on the East Coast in Long Island.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you go, but it was so great. Thank you so much. Have a
Good
great night,
seeing
everyone.
you.
Oh, thank you, David, for joining.
Thank you. Till next time.
That's all right.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Awesome.
So yeah, so I mean, I think there were about 50 people who showed up. That's wonderful.
Yes, I think
That's
that's
a good
great.
number. Mhm. I figured, I told my son, I said, well, 96 signed up, so I'm guessing there might be 40 or 50. That would be good.
I think, yeah. And again, yeah, it's a little bit less work for me. So I'm okay if 100 people don't log in.
Well, I think
So.
people have every intention. I sign up for things all the time, webinars, and then
Yep.
I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be able to make this.
And that's
Yeah.
the nice part is, we can ebb and flow. And I'm so glad John mentioned in the chat box that Roger Herr was on the call, because that cued me in to let him. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sure you I didn't know if you knew he was on the call, but I was like, let's introduce the president.
Yeah, I put my stuff up there so I could just look
Oh.
at my slides. So I wouldn't, and also because I'm always afraid that if I have too many people on there, that you'll see that and not the slides. I'm never sure what people are seeing. So he had mentioned he would come, and I said, really? It's going to be really late for you. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, no, that was great. So nice surprise there. So good job. All right. So I'm going to get bombarded with emails unless you send me your slides pretty soon. So
Yeah, I can
whenever-
send them. I'm going to look through them again because there were a couple of things they might have been on there, but I want to check through them tonight. And make sure. I mean, there was a lot of information.
There was.
Wow.
And you did a good job with kind of going through different areas too, of kind of your new grad resume and hospital based,
Yeah.
again, outside. So
Yeah.
that was really nice. I think you covered
And it was
a
very
wide
half
topic.
and it was very half and half with people wanting to stay in their job and do extra stuff. And so I wanted to make sure
Yep.
that's why I wanted to say this, putting together a resume isn't just for getting a different job. It's just also you might get called to do something and they want your bio.
Yep. Yep. No, I
Yeah.
think that was great. So good ending. Well, thank
Okay.
you, Lori. All right. That
Thank
was
you.
awesome.
You
And then,
take care.
yeah. And then I will CC you on everything that I email out to everybody. So you've got it as a reference. And then I will send you your CE certificate tonight too, because you get
Okay.
one for instructing. So
Yay.
like
Thank
you need the hours, but
Yes.
so
Okay.
all right. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.